Welcome to the debate. It is 2026, and if you've been paying any attention at all to the wellness landscape, you know the ground has completely shifted. We are no longer looking at this monolithic industry where everyone is just trying to, eat clean or get fit.
Right. The path has definitely bifurcated.
Exactly. It is split into two very distinct, very powerful, and frankly, opposing forces. So on one side, we have the hot trend. This is a high-velocity, high-tech, deeply data-driven pursuit of biological optimization. It's aggressive, it is incredibly precise, and it is entirely integrated with the digital world.
And on the other side, acting as a sort of counterweight to all that heat, we have the cool force. And this is the movement toward nature-based healing. It's a pretty hard rejection of the digital in favor of the environmental. It prioritizes simplicity, aesthetic calm, and this fundamental belief that we have just wildly overcomplicated the act of being human.
Which brings us to the central question that we are wrestling with today. Does the future of human longevity and well-being lie in the rigorous, almost militant application of precision technology and data, or is the answer actually found in the strategic rejection of that data, a return to environmental grounding, simplicity, and biological rhythm?
Yeah, it's really the tension between the lab and the garden. I mean, are we machines to be tuned or organisms to be nurtured?
World that is, frankly, increasingly alien to our biology, true wellness actually requires a forward-moving, highly structured approach. We are talking about bio-individual nutrition, artificial intelligence integration, real-time biometrics. We just can't guess our way to health anymore. The environment has become too complex, too toxic, and honestly, too demanding to navigate without a dashboard.
And I come at it from a very different way. I will be arguing for the cool, nature-based perspective. My stance is that the human organism was never designed to be managed like a stock portfolio or, a Formula One engine. Wellness is about sustainability, it's about biophilic living, respecting circadian rhythms, and embracing a slow wellness approach that emphasizes less data and more presence. We really need to stop looking at screens to tell us how we feel.
Well, let's dive right into it then. When we look at the source material regarding the state of health in 2026, there is a very clear distinction made about the evolution of holistic health. It states explicitly that holistic health is the hotter trend because it has evolved. It is no longer just, herbs and meditation. It has matured into a rigorous preventive science.
I see why you emphasize the evolution part. But I think you are mistaking complexity for progress. Just because we have more metrics now doesn't actually mean we have more health.
Not at all. I am talking about precision. Look, the cornerstone of the hot holistic perspective is that it is preventive and personalized. In the past, we relied on general population-level advice, right? Eat your vegetables, get 8 hours of sleep.
Which is still good advice.
It is, but it's a blunt instrument. In 2026, we are operating with bio-individual strategies. We are looking at gut health optimization through the lens of specific microbiome sequencing. We are using functional lab testing to understand methylation pathways, how your specific genetic makeup handles detoxification or vitamin assimilation.
But you're just listing mechanics.
I'm listing necessary data points. The argument here is that the human body is a deeply complex system operating in a hostile environment. General advice is simply insufficient now. We need structure. We need to know exactly what is happening inside the biological machine to optimize it. If you have a genetic variant that impacts your ability to process folate, eating healthy isn't going to fix that. You need a specific protocol.
That is a compelling argument on its face. But have you considered the actual cost of that structure? You talk about the body as a machine to be optimized, but the Coiler perspective reminds us that we are biological organisms. We evolved to exist in nature, not as data sets to be micromanaged. The material describes nature-based healing as the grounding force behind it all. While you are out there chasing the next protocol or the perfect supplement stack, the nature-based approach argues that those hot trends directly lead to burnout and over-analysis.
I'm just not convinced by that line of reasoning because it assumes that knowledge equals stress. I would argue ignorance is far more stressful.
But often the pursuit of that knowledge creates the stress.
That is exactly why I advocate for a back-to-basics philosophy. The material highlights foundational elements like sunlight, clean air, whole foods, and aligning with circadian rhythms. These aren't just nice-to-haves or weekend activities. They are the fundamental inputs our biology expects. You are talking about functional lab testing to fix a hormone imbalance, and I am saying that if you simply align with the solar cycle,
It's not always that simple.
if you get morning light, avoid blue light at night, and breathe clean air, a vast majority of those labs would normalize entirely on their own.
You're betting on the body's ability to self-correct in a vacuum. But we don't live in a vacuum. We live in a highly industrialized, modern society.
No, we live in a world we've broken, and the antidote to that isn't more management and more tech, it is the cool, restorative power of nature.
And that brings us perfectly to the core of our disagreement, which is the role of data versus instinct, or as the material frames it, optimization versus presence. I assert that in 2026, real-time biometrics are not a luxury. They are the only viable way to truly understand the body's needs. We are living in an environment flooded with processed foods engineered to trick our satiety hormones, artificial lights that completely confuse our sleep cycles, and environmental toxins that disrupt our endocrine systems. To navigate this minefield, we absolutely cannot rely on feeling.
Why not? Evolution honed that feeling over millions of years.
Because our feelings have been hijacked. You might feel like eating sugar because you're caught in a manufactured dopamine loop, not because of an actual biological need. You might feel totally energetic at midnight because of blue light exposure from your screens, while your cellular repair processes are literally stalling out. We need the hot approach of tech integration. Without data, you are essentially flying blind through a storm.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. The material explicitly defines slow wellness as less data, more presence. You say we are flying blind without biometrics. I say we are blinded by them. Consider the phenomenon of orthosomnia, the anxiety caused by the sheer obsession with perfecting one's sleep data.
Oh, come on. That's an edge case for obsessive personalities.
It really isn't. It's becoming the norm. When you are constantly monitoring your sleep score, your recovery score, your glucose levels, you create a self-fulfilling feedback loop of anxiety. You wake up, you feel fine, but then your smart ring tells you your readiness is low.
Right, because it detects a drop in HRV.
And suddenly, you feel tired. You stop listening to your body's internal qualitative signals because you are sitting there waiting for an app to give you permission to feel good. That is the opposite of wellness. That's dependency.
That's an interesting point, though. I would frame it very differently. The anxiety doesn't come from the data itself, it comes from a lack of agency. When you have the data, you actually have agency. Take nervous system regulation, for example, which is a key component of the holistic model mentioned in the text. This is a complex physiological goal, involves heart rate variability and vagal tone. To achieve this efficiently, you need the structured approach that the holistic model provides. You need to know if that 20-minute breathing exercise actually shifted your autonomic state, or if you're just sitting on a mat stressing about being stressed. Seeing your HRV rise in real time is validation. It teaches you how to drive your own physiology.
But look at the mechanism of regulation you're describing. You are trying to regulate the nervous system through cognitive control and digital feedback. It's so cerebral. The cool perspective argues that nervous system regulation is much better achieved through grounding and sunlight. These are biological, environmental triggers. When you step barefoot onto the earth, literal grounding, or expose your retinas to unfiltered morning light, you are bypassing the analytical mind entirely and speaking directly to the physiology. You don't need a customized protocol to watch a sunrise, and yet that sunrise sets your suprachiasmatic nucleus better than any app ever could.
I concede that the sunrise is powerful. I'm certainly not anti-sun, but let's be realistic about the world we are actually living in. We are discussing 2026. People are busy, they are urbanized, they are deeply disconnected from natural landscapes. The tech-integrated aspect of the holistic trend is essentially ancient wisdom meets AI. It allows us to bridge that massive gap.
How does an AI algorithm replace the sun?
There's grounding in a forest because they have a demanding job in a concrete high-rise. The wearables and the AI become the bridge. Maybe the system tells them the exact minute to step onto the balcony for maximum lux intake. Maybe it recommends a PMF mat to mimic the Earth's frequency during their commute. It allows for preventative care that anticipates issues. It feels modern because it actually adapts to the modern reality rather than wishing for a pastoral past.
I come at it from a different way. You say the tech is a bridge. I say it's a barrier. And this moves us to the tension between technology and environment. You champion this integration of AI and wisdom, but the biophilic perspective challenges the very intrusion of this tech into our intimate spaces. We are talking about biophilic living, the use of natural materials, organic shapes, plant-filled spaces. This isn't just about decoration or, good vibes. It is about creating an environment that passively signals safety to the organism.
But is that medicine? Or is that just high-end interior design?
It is absolutely medicine. We know clinically that cortisol levels drop when humans look at fractal patterns found in nature. We know that volatile organic compounds from synthetic materials, carpets, paints, plastics chronically depress the immune system. By focusing on biophilic living, we provide a restorative backdrop. If you fix the input, the air, the light, the materials, the system self-corrects. You're trying to micromanage the biochemistry of the fish while completely ignoring the fact that the fish is swimming in a dirty tank.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective on micromanaging. We call it preventative strategy, and I think you are vastly overestimating the power of a fern in the corner of a living room. You can live in the most beautiful plant-filled space with organic shapes, but if you have a genetic predisposition to poor methylation or a severe microbiome imbalance caused by years of antibiotic use in your 20s, the environment alone will not fix you.
It provides the foundation for healing.
A foundation isn't a cure. That is exactly why functional lab testing remains the priority. The environment is the wrapper. The data-driven holistic approach is the actual engine of repair.
And I would argue that many of those severe imbalances you mentioned are the direct downstream effects of ignoring the environment for decades. But let's look at how your side handles the mental aspect. The text notes that the holistic approach includes mental fitness, stress recovery, and even digital detox. But notice the context there. Even the digital detox is part of a structured system. In 2026, you cannot simply hope to relax. You need a strategy. The hot trend is forward-moving. It acknowledges that to reclaim our mental space, we need a rigorous, almost militant approach to structure.
You call it militant, I call it effective. In an attention economy, if you don't aggressively structure your piece, you simply won't get any.
And therein lies the irony. You are using a highly structured, likely data-tracked digital system to perform a digital detox. It totally defeats the purpose. The cool approach values simplicity and sustainability. If your wellness routine requires a spreadsheet and a dashboard, it isn't sustainable. It's just another job. The vibe of wellness in 2026, according to the nature-based perspective, should be calm, aesthetic, and restorative. It shouldn't feel like work.
But work gets results. And look, the text explicitly states a reality check here. It says, nature-based living is becoming more intentionally structured. This proves my point entirely. Even the hardcore proponents of nature are realizing that you cannot just passively drift into wellness. You have to actively structure your exposure to nature. You have to schedule your sunlight. You have to intentionally filter your water. Structure is the dominant force in 2026, because without it, entropy takes over. The modern world is highly entropic. Structure is our only defense.
That is a fundamental misreading of the dynamic between the two trends. The text also explicitly says holistic health is becoming more nature-rooted. This proves my point. The high-tech holistic crowd is finally realizing that all their gadgets and customized protocols are completely hollow without the foundation of nature. They are scrambling to add earthy vibes to their sterile labs. They are realizing that staring at a screen to pace your breathing just isn't as biologically effective as staring at a tree. Nature is the foundation upon which your elaborate structure is built. Without the cool grounding force, your hot trend just burns itself out.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because the nature-rooted aspect is simply being assimilated into the holistic model. It's becoming a feature of the system, not the system itself. The text says the holistic approach is fully integrated, blending mental, physical, and emotional wellness into one comprehensive system. That system is the container. Nature is just one extremely useful ingredient in the protocol. The hot trend is the overarching framework that makes sense of the nature. We are using the left brain to facilitate the right brain's needs.
I think that is a very human-centric, frankly, hubristic view, that we can just reduce nature to an ingredient in a biohacker's protocol, take 20 milligrams of nature and call me in the morning. Nature is the context for life itself. When the text says the cool trend feels restorative, it heavily implies that we are depleted. And what depleted us? The constant striving, the forward-moving, always optimizing energy that you prize so much.
We are depleted by poor inputs, not by the desire to improve.
But the slow wellness movement isn't just about moving at a slower pace. It's about recognizing that we cannot out-engineer our biology. Less data, more presence. That is a radical act in 2026. It is a declaration that I am enough as I am, and I can heal, without needing a glowing dashboard to confirm it for me.
I am enough is a very beautiful sentiment for a motivational poster, but it doesn't detect early-stage autoimmune markers.
And detecting microscopic markers doesn't necessarily make you feel calm or aesthetic. It often just makes you a patient in waiting. You spend your whole life anxiously preparing for a disease you might never actually get, sacrificing the peace of the present moment for a statistical probability in the future.
It makes you prepared. It makes you resilient. And frankly, the data shows it makes you live longer. The hot trend is fundamentally about longevity and peak performance. We are looking at health span, not just lifespan. We want people to be functioning at an incredibly high physical and cognitive level when they are 90. To do that, you need to catch the biological decline long before it manifests as symptoms. That requires rigorous data.
And the cool trend is about the actual lived quality of that long life. What good is longevity if you spend it staring at a screen, stressing about your daily metrics? If you live to be 100, but you spent the last 40 years meticulously measuring every bite of food and analyzing the data of every breath you took, did you actually live, or did you just operate?
Well, we are certainly reaching the philosophical limits of this dichotomy, but let's look at where we stand as we wrap up. I maintain that while the cool, nature-based perspective absolutely offers a pleasing aesthetic and a very necessary emotional grounding, the hot trend of 2026 personalized, data-driven, tech-integrated health is the true engine of longevity. People want tangible results. They want cutting-edge, personalized strategy. They want to know that the immense effort they put in is actually working. And for that level of certainty, you absolutely need the rigor of the holistic model.
That is a compelling summary. But have you considered that perhaps people are fundamentally tired of strategy? I maintain that while data obviously has its clinical place, the cool trend simplicity, slow wellness, and biophilia is the actual soul of health. In a world of just constant noise and digital intrusion, people desperately crave calm and earthy vibes. They don't want to be continuously optimized. They want to be restored. And true restoration comes from the basics: sunlight, clean air, and presence.
The source material does offer us a bit of a synthesis at the end. It states, hot plus cool equals balanced. The reality of 2026 is likely a merger of these extremes. We are seeing high-tech recovery spas that are designed to look and feel like natural caves. We are seeing AI health assistants that proactively suggest you go for a walk in the woods without your phone.
The future of wellness is both. I can definitely agree with that. The text suggests that holistic health is becoming more nature-rooted, and nature-based living is becoming more intentionally structured. We really are meeting in the middle.
Indeed, we are. Perhaps the ideal is a deeply structured approach to finding presence, or a tech-integrated way to ensure we actually get our daily sunlight. But I still believe the driver of this car must be the data. We use the data to ensure we are getting enough nature. We use the tech to verify that the simple things are actually working.
And I still believe nature must be the driver. We use the nature to render the constant stream of data irrelevant. We return to a state where we can trust our bodies again. We might use the tech occasionally to diagnose a complex problem, But the solution, the true, sustainable healing, is almost always found in the environment, not the app.
A fundamental disagreement on the hierarchy of truth. You trust the organism. I trust the audit of the organism.
As it should be. The dynamic tension between the two is probably where the real health actually lies.
We will have to leave it right there. Thank you for listening to the debate. As you navigate the complex wellness landscape of 2026, ask yourself, do you need more fire, more strategy, more data, more structure? Do you need to take absolute control of the variables?
Or do you need more ice, more calm, more simplicity, more nature? Do you need to stop counting every metric and just start feeling again? Thank you for joining us.